Get her out of my mother's house, today. The call lasted 11 seconds. Felicity Adjei didn't wait for a response. She hung up, dropped her phone on the mahogany desk, and went back to reviewing quarterly projections. Somewhere across town, a home health aide named AC Tete was folding a blanket she had just washed for an 81-year-old woman who called her my daughter. AC had no idea that phone call had just ended her career. And she had no idea that 14 months from now, Felicity Adjei would be standing in a parking lot in the rain, begging AC to come back. But we'll get there. Before I tell you what happened next, if you believe that the way you treat people always finds its way back to you, stay with me, because what this woman went through over the next year and a half, it'll sit with you long after this story ends. Let me take you back to where it started. Felicity Adjei was not a doctor. She was not a nurse. She had never changed a bedpan, or lifted a patient from a wheelchair, or sat with someone at 4 in the morning when the pain got so bad they couldn't sleep. But she controlled a budget worth $40 million. She was the CFO of Meridian Health Partners, one of the largest home healthcare networks in Georgia. She had earned that title. She fought for it with everything she had, clawed her way from a cramped apartment in College Park to a glass office in Buckhead, with a view of the skyline that made her feel like she owned the city. Her parents came from Takoradi. Her father, Joseph, drove a delivery truck for 19 years. Her mother, Millicent, cleaned hotel rooms at the Marriott until her back gave out. They gave everything so Felicity could become someone. And she did. She graduated top of her class at Spelman, MBA from Emory. She married Raymond, an attorney. They had a son, Malachi, who was 7 and already reading at a 5th grade level. They lived in a 4-bedroom house in Druid Hills. Felicity wore Tom Ford to Monday meetings and Oscar de la Renta to Saturday brunches. People respected her. People feared her. And she had stopped noticing when respect turned into something else a long time ago. Raymond told her once. They were in the kitchen, Malachi already in bed. Fel, you talk to people like they're beneath you. She didn't look up from her laptop. I talk to people like someone who signs their paychecks. He leaned against the counter. That's not the same thing as leadership. It gets results. It gets compliance. That's different. She didn't hear him. She was already typing a response to a vendor who had missed a deadline by 2 days. Raymond picked up his glass and walked to the living room alone. That was the kind of woman Felicity had become. Not evil, not deliberately cruel, just so high above everyone that she had forgotten what it felt like to be looked down on. And that is the most dangerous kind of person, because they never see the damage until it's standing right in front of them. Now, Felicity's mother, Millicent, lived alone in a small house in East Point. She was 81, diabetic, with early signs of vascular dementia. She needed help. Not hospital help, just someone to check her sugar levels, make sure she ate, keep her company, keep her safe. Felicity hired a home health aide through her own company's network, the best-rated aide on the roster, a woman named AC Tete. AC was 31, slim, quiet, the kind of person who entered a room so gently you didn't notice her until she was already fixing something. She grew up in Clarkston, just east of Atlanta. Her mother, Akua, was a retired seamstress from Accra who raised Isi and her younger sister alone after their father died in a construction accident when Isi was 9. Akua had one rule in that house. She said it so many times it was stitched into the walls. Every person you meet is carrying something you cannot see. Be gentle. Isi carried that everywhere, to school, to her CNC certification program, to every 12-hour shift with every patient she ever cared for. She learned their names, their children's names, what tea they liked, which knee hurt more in the morning, who was afraid of falling, who just wanted someone to sit with them while Jeopardy was on. Her supervisor at Meridian, a woman named Lucille Grant, pulled Essie aside one afternoon. Teta, I've been doing this 23 years. I have never, not once, seen a patient satisfaction score like yours. Not a single complaint. You know how impossible that is in this field? Essie smiled softly. I just try to treat them the way I'd want someone to treat my mother. Lucille nodded. Well, whatever you're doing, don't stop. Essie wasn't loud. She didn't post about her work. She didn't chase promotions. She just showed up every shift, every time. She was the kind of person who held the whole system together and nobody even noticed. Until the day she answered the wrong phone. It was a Wednesday. Essie had been caring for Millicent for 8 months. 8 months of cooking jollof rice, just the way Millicent liked it, extra tomato, not too much pepper. 8 months of checking her blood sugar every morning at 7:15. 8 months of sitting on the porch in the afternoons, listening to Millicent tell stories about Takoradi, about the market where she used to buy fresh fish, about the sound of the ocean at night. Millicent adored Essie. She called her my daughter. She told her things she didn't tell Felicity. She told her she was scared of forgetting. She told her she heard her late husband Joseph's voice, sometimes at night, calling her name. She told her she was afraid that one day she would wake up and not know where she was. Essie held her hand when she said that. I'll be right here, Mama Millie. Every morning, I promise. That afternoon, Felicity came for her weekly visit. She always came on Wednesdays at 4 p.m., 45 minutes exactly. She brought groceries, checked the medicine cabinet, and left. She didn't sit on the porch. She didn't ask about Takoradi. When Felicity walked in, Millicent was napping. Essie was in the kitchen, wiping down the counter. Felicity set the grocery bags down and glanced around the house. Clean, organized, fresh flowers on the table. Essie bought them every Monday from the farmer's market on Memorial Drive. Then Felicity's phone rang. She looked at the screen, frowned, and set it on the kitchen counter to take another call from her Bluetooth earpiece. It was a board call. She stepped into the living room. While she was gone, the phone on the counter rang again and again. On the third ring, Millicent stirred from her nap in the next room and called out, "Somebody get that phone, it's hurting my head." Essie hesitated. She picked it up. "Hello, Mrs. Adjei's phone." The voice on the other end was a man. "Who is this?" "This is Essie, Mrs. Millicent's caregiver. Mrs. Adjei is on another call. Can I take a message?" "Just tell her David Chen called about the Piedmont contract." "Of course, I'll let her know." She hung up. She wrote the message on a sticky note and placed it next to the phone. That was it. 30 seconds. A phone call, a name, a sticky note. When Felicity came back into the kitchen, she saw the sticky note. Her face changed. "Did you answer my phone?" "Yes, ma'am. It kept ringing and your mother asked me to. I didn't ask you to touch my phone. Ever." Essie's stomach tightened. "I'm sorry, I just didn't want it to disturb. That was a confidential business call. Do you understand what that means? Do you have any idea what kind of information is on that phone?" "I only took a message. I didn't. You had no right." Essie stood still. Her voice stayed calm, the way her mother taught her. "You're right. I apologize. It won't happen again." But something about Essie bothered Felicity. It wasn't what she said. It was how she said it. Calm, steady. She wasn't cowering. She wasn't begging. She was just standing there, looking at Felicity with clear eyes like an equal. And Felicity Adjei was not used to that. She picked up her phone. She picked up her purse. She kissed her mother on the forehead. Millicent was still half asleep, and she left. She didn't say goodbye to Essie. In the car, she sat for a full minute before starting the engine. She didn't know why that moment stayed with her. The calm in that woman's eyes. The way she stood. Like she wasn't afraid. It bothered her. It shouldn't have, but it did. Nobody saw the next part coming, except the woman who'd already made up her mind. 2 weeks later it happened. Felicity called Lucille Grant at the home care division. I want EC Teta removed from my mother's care, immediately. Lucille paused. Felicity, EC is our highest-rated aide. Your mother's vitals have been stable for 8 months. Her satisfaction scores are. I'm not asking for her stats. I'm telling you to remove her. Can I ask why? Felicity paused. What could she say? That the woman answered a phone? That she wrote a sticky note? That she looked at her without flinching? She couldn't say any of that. Out loud, it sounded like nothing. So she said something worse. I caught her going through my mother's jewelry box. I don't trust her. I want her gone. It was a lie. A clean, calculated, deliberate lie. Lucille's face tightened on the other end of the phone. She didn't believe it. She had reviewed EC's file 100 times. 0 complaints. 0 incidents. Perfect record. But Felicity Adjei was the CFO. Her signature approved budgets. Her word carried the weight of a woman who could end careers with a single email. I'll handle it, Lucille said. By the end of the day, EC was called into the office. Lucille couldn't look her in the eye. EC, I don't know how to tell you this. Ussie, then just tell me. You're being removed from the Adjei assignment, effective immediately. And there's been a complaint filed about a personal property concern. Easy didn't move. Property concern? What property? I can't go into specifics. I'm sorry. Easy's breath caught. She understood. Not the details, but the shape of it. The phone call. The look in Felicity's eyes. The way power works when it decides you're disposable. Lucille, you know me. 3 years. Not a single complaint. Not one missing item. Not one. Lucille's eyes were wet. I know. Then how? It's not my call, EC. Not her call. It never is. It's always someone above. Someone with money. Someone with a title. Someone who never has to look you in the eye when they pull the trigger. EC stood up slowly. She didn't cry. She didn't yell. She looked at Lucille with 3 years of early mornings and late nights, and patients who called her my daughter, and families who hugged her at the door. I understand, she said, but she didn't. Not really. She drove to Millicent's house one last time. She wasn't supposed to, but she needed to say goodbye. Millicent was on the porch, sitting in her favorite chair, looking at the street. EC, you're early today. EC sat down next to her. She took Millicent's hand. Mama Millie, I won't be coming anymore. Millicent's face crumbled. What? Why? Did I do something? No, you didn't do anything. It's just, there's been a change. I don't want a change, I want you. EC squeezed her hand. Her eyes burned. I know, I want to be here too. Then stay. I can't, Mama Millie, I'm so sorry. Millicent held EC's hand with both of hers. Her grip was surprisingly strong. You are the only one who sits with me. The only one who listens. My own daughter brings groceries and checks the cabinet and leaves. You sit with me. You remember the stories. EC couldn't speak. She pressed her forehead to Millicent's hand and stayed there for a long moment. I'll remember every story, EC whispered. Every single one. She stood up. She walked to her car. She didn't look back because she knew if she did, she wouldn't be able to leave. That evening, Felicity brought a new aide to her mother's house. A woman named Janet, efficient, professional, perfectly qualified. Millicent looked at Janet and then looked at Felicity. Where is Essie? She's been reassigned. Mama, reassigned where? It doesn't matter. Janet is very capable. Millicent's jaw tightened. She looked at her daughter with something Felicity had never seen before. Not anger, disappointment. You did this, Millicent said quietly. Mama, don't lie to me, Felicity. My memory is going, but I am not stupid. What did you do? Felicity straightened her jacket. I made a decision for your safety. Millicent shook her head slowly. Your father and I didn't raise you to throw away good people. Felicity turned and walked to her car. She didn't respond. She didn't need to. She was the one who signed the checks. That's the thing about people with power. They make decisions that shatter lives. And then they drive home and pour a glass of wine and forget about it before the ice melts. But Millicent didn't forget. Over the next 3 months, she declined. Not suddenly, slowly, the way a house settles when a supporting wall is removed. Janet checked her vitals. Janet managed the medications. Janet was competent, but she wasn't easy. She didn't know about the extra tomato in the jollof. She didn't know that Millicent needed the porch light on at night because the dark made her anxious. She didn't know that on Thursdays, Millicent liked to listen to high life music on the little radio in the kitchen because it reminded her of home. Millicent stopped eating well. She lost 8 pounds in 2 months. She started getting confused more often. She called Janet Easy 3 times in 1 week. Janet corrected her each time. Easy would have just answered. The decline was quiet. Nothing catastrophic. Nothing that made the news. Just a warmth that left, and nobody could figure out how to bring it back. Now, Easy, she rebuilt. She spent 3 weeks at her mother's apartment in Clarkston. Akua didn't ask questions at first. She just made groundnut soup and set it on the table and sat with her daughter in the quiet. On the 3rd day, EC told her everything. The phone call, the accusation, the lie. Akua listened. When EC finished, her mother reached across the table and held both her hands. "Do you remember what I always told you?" EC nodded. Her eyes were red. "Every person is carrying something you cannot see. Be gentle. You were gentle. You did everything right. And they still threw me out, Mama. I know. And it's not fair. But listen to me." Akua leaned forward. "When someone punishes you for being kind, that punishment doesn't belong to you. It belongs to them, and they will carry it. Maybe not today, but they will carry it." Easy wiped her eyes. "What do I do now? What you've always done. You take care of people." 2 months later, EC found work at a small nonprofit called Haven House, a community care center in South Atlanta that served elderly patients who had no insurance, no family nearby. No one. The pay was less than half what she made at Meridian. The hours were longer. The building was old and the supplies were thin, but the patients needed her, and EC needed to be needed. She showed up on her first day in fresh scrubs. She introduced herself to every person in the waiting area. She learned their names by the end of the week. Within 5 months, Haven House's patient satisfaction numbers were the highest they'd ever recorded. Nobody wrote about it in the newspaper. Nobody gave a speech about it at a fundraiser. But every person who walked through that door knew someone cared. And that someone was Essie. If this story is already pulling at you, stay with me. Because what happens next changed everything for EC, for Felicity, and for an 81-year-old woman whose mind was slipping away while the one person who could reach her was 20 miles across town taking care of strangers. The phone call came on a Sunday morning. 14 months after EC was fired, Raymond called Felicity from Millicent's house. His voice was wrong, flat. Careful. "Fel, you need to come here." "Now, what happened?" "Your mother locked herself in the bathroom. She's been in there for 2 hours. She doesn't know where she is. She's calling for your father." Joseph had been dead for 9 years. Felicity broke every speed limit between Druid Hills and East Point. When she arrived, Raymond was sitting outside the bathroom door, talking softly through the wood. Inside, Millicent was weeping. "Joseph? Joseph, where are you?" "I can't find the door." "Joseph, please." Felicity knelt by the door. "Mama, it's me. It's Felicity. Open the door." "Who?" That word, one word. It split Felicity's world in half. "Mama, it's your daughter." Silence. Then I want Joseph. "Where is Joseph? Where is Essie? I want Essie." Felicity pressed her forehead against the bathroom door and closed her eyes. They got her out eventually. Raymond removed the doorknob. Millicent was sitting on the tile floor in her nightgown, shaking, confused, asking for people who were either dead or gone. The next day, Felicity met with Dr. Owusu, a geriatric neurologist at Grady. He reviewed Millicent's scans and charts for an hour. Then he sat down across from Felicity and Raymond. Your mother's dementia has progressed significantly. The vascular component is accelerating. We're looking at a narrow window where the right intervention, medication, structured cognitive therapy, and consistent specialized care could stabilize her. Maybe slow it down. But that window is closing. Then do it, Felicity said, the boardroom voice, whatever it costs. Dr. Owusu nodded. The medical side I can handle. But here's what the research shows and what I've seen in 30 years of practice. Patients with vascular dementia respond to familiarity. Familiar voices, familiar routines, familiar faces. A stranger with a checklist won't reach her. You need someone she trusts, someone she already has a bond with. Without that anchor, the cognitive therapy fails. I've seen it happen dozens of times. He looked at Felicity. Your mother keeps asking for someone named Isi, every evaluation, every session. She asks for Isi. Who is that? The room went silent. Not the polite kind. The kind where gravity shifts and your past reaches forward and grabs you by the throat. Raymond looked at Felicity. He didn't know the full story, but he saw her face drain of color, and he knew. She was my mother's previous aide, Felicity said. I need her, Dr. Owusu said. I need the person your mother's brain has anchored to. Without that anchor, Mrs. Adjei, the therapy won't take. And once this window closes, it doesn't open again. Your mother won't know who you are. She might not know who she is. He said it calmly, the way a man says something when he has delivered the same truth to 100 families and knows that gentleness doesn't make it hurt less. Felicity sat in that chair and felt the walls closing in. The aide she had fired over a phone call. The aide she had accused of theft. The aide she had erased from her mother's life without a second thought. That aide was now the only person who could keep her mother's mind from disappearing. Fate doesn't ask permission. It walks right through the door you thought you locked. I'll find her, Felicity whispered. Soon, Dr. Owusu said. We have weeks, not months. He shook Raymond's hand and left. The door closed, and Felicity Adjei sat in that office completely still, for the first time in her life with absolutely no idea what to do. She had destroyed this woman's reputation. Now she needed her to save her mother's mind. Felicity didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed at 2 a.m. staring at the ceiling. Raymond was breathing steadily beside her, but she felt 1,000 miles from everything. She got up. She went to her home office. She sat in the dark. She opened her laptop and searched the name. Haven House Community Care. Staff page. There she was. A photo on the nonprofit's website. EC standing with a group of elderly patients at a holiday event, smiling, wearing simple scrubs, her arm around a woman in a wheelchair. She looked happy. Felicity stared at that photo for a long time. She thought about what she had done. Not the version she told herself, the real one, the ugly one. An aide answered a ringing phone because an 81-year-old woman asked her to. She wrote a name on a sticky note, and because she looked at Felicity without fear, Felicity decided to destroy her. She lied. She called it theft. She used her title to take a woman's career, and her mother's only real companion, and she never thought about it again. Not once, until now. She closed the laptop. She put her head in her hands and cried. Not the composed kind, the ugly kind, the kind that comes from somewhere so deep you didn't know it existed. She cried, because her mother was disappearing. She cried, because the one person who could help was the person she had thrown away. And she cried because for the first time she saw herself clearly, and she didn't recognize what she saw. The next morning, Felicity drove to Haven House. She didn't send an assistant. She didn't call ahead. She didn't bring a lawyer. She went alone. The building was a converted community center on a side street in South Atlanta. The paint was peeling. The parking lot had cracks in the asphalt. The waiting room was full. Felicity walked in wearing a simple gray sweater, no jewelry except her wedding ring. Flat shoes, no heels. The receptionist looked up. "Can I help you?" "I need to speak with AC Teta, please." "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but it's urgent, please." 3 minutes later, Essie walked into the narrow hallway. She stopped when she saw Felicity. The two women stood 6 feet apart. The fluorescent light hummed overhead. Essie's face didn't change. She didn't gasp. She didn't flinch. She just looked at Felicity with those same steady eyes. The ones that had bothered Felicity 14 months ago. "Mrs. Adjei," Essie said. Neutral, professional, Miss Teta. Felicity's voice cracked. "Silence. Can we talk?" Felicity asked. "Please." Essie studied her for a long moment. Then she nodded. "There's a bench by the side entrance." They sat outside on a metal bench under a dogwood tree. The street was quiet. A bus passed. Felicity stared at her hands. She had negotiated million-dollar deals. She had argued with CEOs and board members and senators, but she couldn't find words for this. Essie waited. Patient. The way she waited with every patient. The way she was built. "My mother is sick," Felicity finally said. "The dementia. It's gotten much worse." Something shifted in Essie's face. A softening around the eyes. "Mama Millie?" Felicity looked up. "You still call her that? That's her name." That sentence hit harder than Felicity expected. She had fired this woman, accused her of stealing, erased her, and Essie still called Millicent Mama Millie. Still remembered. Still cared. Felicity had a mother who was forgetting everything. Essie had a patient she refused to forget, and the distance between those two truths said everything. "Her neurologist says there's a window," Felicity continued. Her voice shook. "Medication. Cognitive therapy. But it only works with someone she's bonded to. Someone her brain recognizes as safe. She asks for you, Essie, every session, every evaluation. She asks where you are." Essie looked at the dogwood tree, at the white petals trembling in the breeze. "So you need me," Essie said softly. "Yes, the same way your mother needed me before you had me fired." The words landed like stones in still water. Felicity's chin trembled. "Yes," she whispered. Silence, a long one. "I know what I did," Felicity said. "I know there's no excuse. You answered a phone because my mother asked you to. You wrote a message on a sticky note, and I accused you of theft. I lied about you to protect my ego. I used my position to take your job and rip away the one person my mother actually trusted." Her voice broke. "And I didn't think about it. Not once, not until last night when I sat in the dark and searched your name and saw you here, at this clinic, caring for people who have nothing. And I realized that I destroyed a good person because she looked me in the eye like I was just a person, and I couldn't handle that." Tears ran down Felicity's face. She didn't wipe them. "I'm not here to offer you money. I'm not here to threaten or pressure you. I'm here because my mother is losing her mind, and the doctor says you're the only one who can help. And I know I have no right to ask." She looked at Essie. "But I'm asking." Essie sat on that bench. The wind moved through the dogwood branches. She thought about the day she drove away from Millicent's house, the look on Mama Millie's face, the grip of her hands. "You are the only one who sits with me." She thought about the accusation. The word theft attached to her name. The months she spent wondering if anyone would ever trust her again. The pay cut. The doubt. The nights she cried into her pillow while Akua pretended not to hear through the thin walls. And then she thought about Millicent, 81 years old, sitting on a bathroom floor, calling for a dead husband, calling for Essie. "Mama Millie still likes the porch light on at night?" Essie asked. Felicity blinked. I don't know." "She does. The dark scares her. And on Thursdays, she needs high life music on the kitchen radio. And her sugar spikes if she eats after 7 p.m. And she likes it when you hold her left hand, not her right. because her right wrist has that old ache from the hotel years. Felicity stared at this woman who remembered every detail about a patient she hadn't seen in over a year. She couldn't remember the name of the aide she had fired. She'd had to look it up last night. Isi remembered everything. Felicity forgot, and that gap between them held the entire story. "When does Dr. Owusu want me to start?" Isi asked. Felicity's breath caught. Her hand flew to her mouth. Her shoulders shook, she managed. He said Monday. Isi nodded once. "I'll be there." Felicity broke, completely. She bent forward on that bench and sobbed. Not the composed woman who ran budgets and silenced boardrooms, just a daughter, terrified and grateful and ashamed all at once. Isi didn't touch her. She didn't hug her. That wasn't what this moment needed. She just sat there, steady, present, the way she always was, Monday morning. 7:10 a.m. Isi Tete walked through the front door of Millicent's house in East Point. She was wearing clean scrubs. Her badge was from Haven House. She hadn't asked for a Meridian badge, and Felicity hadn't offered one. The house smelled like coffee and old flowers. The curtains were drawn. The porch light was off. Isi turned it on. She walked down the hallway to Millicent's bedroom. The door was open. Millicent was sitting in bed, staring at the wall. Her eyes were cloudy. Her hands were in her lap. She looked smaller than Isi remembered. "Mama Millie." Millicent turned her head slowly. Her brow furrowed. Something moved behind her eyes. Not recognition exactly, but something deeper. Something the brain holds on to when everything else is letting go. "I know you," Millicent whispered. Isi sat on the edge of the bed. She took Millicent's left hand, not the right. "Yes, Mama Millie, you know me." Millicent's fingers tightened around Isi's hand. Her chin trembled. "Where did you go?" Isi's eyes burned. "I'm here now. Don't leave again. I won't." Over the next 6 weeks, Isi came every day. She followed Dr. Owusu's cognitive therapy protocol to the letter. The memory exercises, the photo recognition sessions, the structured conversations designed to strengthen neural pathways. But she did more than the protocol. She did what no medical chart could prescribe. She cooked jollof rice, extra tomato, not too much pepper. She turned on the High Life station every Thursday. She sat on the porch in the afternoons and listened to stories about Takoradi. Sometimes they were the same stories Millicent had told before. Essie listened like it was the first time, every time. She brought fresh flowers on Mondays, and slowly, not dramatically, not like in the movies, Millicent came back. Not all the way. The dementia was still there. It would always be there. But the fog lifted enough. She started eating again. She gained 4 pounds. She started remembering which day it was. She stopped calling for Joseph at night. On the 4th week, Dr. Owusu ran a new round of evaluations. He sat down with Felicity afterward. "The cognitive scores have improved more than I've seen in any patient at this stage. Her neural pathways are responding to the familiarity anchor exactly as we hoped. The therapy is working." Felicity closed her eyes. "Thank God. Don't thank God alone. Thank Isi. The protocol is medicine. What Isi does, the routine, the food, the music, the way she holds your mother's hand, that's something I can't prescribe. That's something no medical school teaches. Your mother's brain chose Isi as its anchor, and Isi is holding that anchor steady." Felicity sat with those words. 3 weeks later, Millicent was stable enough to go outside again. Isi took her to the porch. They sat in the afternoon sun. Millicent was having a good day. Clear eyes, steady voice. "Isi." "Yes, Mama Millie?" "My daughter, Felicity. She sent you away, didn't she?" Isi didn't answer immediately. "That was a long time ago. I knew it. I knew the moment they told me you were gone. She did something. I could see it in her face." Millicent paused. "And you came back anyway. I came back for you. Why? After what she did?" Isi looked at the street. A kid rode by on a bicycle. The dogwood in the yard was blooming. Because my mother taught me that kindness doesn't keep score, and because you called me your daughter. And a daughter doesn't walk away from her mother." Millicent's eyes filled with tears. She squeezed Esie's hand. "You are my daughter. You always were." Felicity was standing inside the screen door. She had come to drop off groceries. She heard every word. She set the bags down on the counter. She didn't come outside. She stood in the kitchen and pressed both hands against the countertop and breathed. She breathed the way you breathe when something inside you that was locked for a very long time fully opens, and you're not ready for what comes out. That evening, Felicity came back. Esie was writing up her care notes at the kitchen table. Malachi was in the living room showing Millicent a book about dinosaurs. Millicent was laughing. "Monsieur Tete." Esie looked up. "I need to say something to you, and I need you to hear all of it." Esie set down her pen. She gave Felicity her full attention. "What I did to you 14 months ago was the worst thing I've ever done. I lied. I called you a thief. I used my title to destroy your reputation, and I did it because you answered a phone. Because you looked at me like I was just a regular person. And somewhere along the way, I had convinced myself that I was above everyone." Her voice trembled, but she didn't stop. "My father drove a delivery truck for 19 years so I could go to college. My mother cleaned hotel rooms until her body broke. They taught me to be humble. They taught me to remember where I came from, and I forgot every word." She reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. "This is a formal letter to Meridian's HR board and to Lucille Grant. I've told the truth, all of it. About the lie I told, about why you were really removed. I've asked them to clear your record completely and to offer you a senior position with full back pay for every month you missed." Esie looked at the envelope. She didn't take it. "I don't need back pay," Esie said. "I don't need a position at Meridian." Felicity's face fell. "What I need," Esie said, "is for you to go sit on that porch with your mother right now. Not for 45 minutes, not between calls. Sit with her. Ask her about Takaradi. Ask her about the fish market. Ask her about the sound the ocean made. Let her tell you the same story 3 times and listen like it's the first." She paused. "That's my condition." Felicity's hand holding the envelope dropped to her side. "I carried anger," Esie said quietly. "I won't lie about that. There were nights I wanted you to feel what I felt, to lose something, to have someone look at you and decide you were nothing." Her voice softened. "But my mother told me, when someone punishes you for being kind, that is not your burden. That is theirs. You've been carrying it. I can see that now." She looked at Felicity. Those same steady eyes, unchanged. "I think that's enough." Felicity couldn't hold it. The tears came. She stood in the kitchen of her mother's house, the house her father paid for with 19 years of delivery routes, and she cried without trying to stop. "Go sit with your mother, Mrs. Adjei. That's all that matters." Esie picked up her pen. She went back to her notes. Felicity walked to the porch. She sat down next to Millicent. Malachi climbed into his grandmother's lap with the dinosaur book. "Mama," Felicity said. "Yes? Tell me about Takaradi, about the fish market. What did it sound like?" Millicent looked at her daughter, surprised. Then her face softened into something Felicity hadn't seen in years. Joy. "Oh, Felicity, let me tell you, the market was right by the water. You could hear the waves and the women calling out prices at the same time. Your father used to take me there every Saturday morning before you were born." Felicity listened. She didn't check her phone. She didn't look at her watch. She just sat on the porch in East Point, holding her mother's hand, while the afternoon light came through the dogwood tree, and her son turned pages in a book about creatures that lived 100 million years ago. Inside, Esie heard Millicent laughing through the screen door. She smiled and kept writing. A week later, Felicity parked across the street from Haven House. She didn't go in. She watched through the window as Essie helped an elderly man into a chair, adjusted a woman's blanket, handed a child a cup of juice. She opened her checkbook. She wrote a check for $250,000. She walked to the front door and slid it under the gap. No name, no foundation logo, no memo. On the drive home, Felicity Adjei rolled down the window. She felt the Georgia heat on her face. She took a deep breath, and she started over. Some people use power to erase others. Some people use grace to bring them back. Felicity had the title, the money, the corner office, but she had lost the one thing none of it could buy. She had lost her humanity. And Cece had nothing but her hands, her heart, and a promise her mother stitched into her bones. Every person you meet is carrying something you cannot see. Be gentle. The proud are not punished by others. They are punished by the weight of their own choices. And the only relief is truth. Essie didn't need revenge. She didn't need money, or an apology, or a cleared record. She needed Felicity to sit on a porch and listen to an old woman's story. Because listening, real listening, is where love begins. And love is the only thing that slows down forgetting. If this story stayed with you, subscribe and hit the notification bell. Because every story we tell here carries a lesson. And the next one might be the one that changes how you see someone you've been walking past every single day.